Ever found a cheap stock and thought, is now the right time, or am I just early? Now, it's a question every investor wrestles with because finding value is only part of the puzzle. Now, the real challenge is knowing when buyers are about to take over and send the share price soaring. So tonight, we've pulled together 10 ASX stocks that still look cheap today. But the window might not stay open for long because buyers are circling and the share prices are starting to gain traction. So strap in because we reveal all the key levels you need to watch moving forward. Now, if you want to trade with more certainty than over 95% of traders, then you've come to the right place. Welcome to Wealth Within's Australian Stock Market Show. Now, with over 2 decades of experience training over 30,000 clients, we bring you what actually works in the stock market. I'm Dale Gillum, and joining me are Wealth Within professional traders Janine Cox and Philip Tortevsky. Good evening, team. How are we? I'm going to go straight to you, Phil.
Yes, I'm good.
Welcome back on the show.
Good to be back. Everything looks the same. And yeah, the market's flying, so good times.
Well, Janine kept your seat warm last week, and the week before I was keeping it warm. So Janine did an excellent job last week, so thank you.
Well, it's a pleasure. And look out, that seat's still burning.
I know, everybody seemed to love Janine. I think we got the sack, mate. I think they all love Janine in this seat. But anyway, let's get straight into it. Now, when you say the word cheap stocks, Janine, there's a universal belief that what it looks like. So what is cheap to you, and how should investors look for cheap on the market?
Cheap to me is about opportunity. So if there's an opportunity to make a profit, at times stocks get sold off. And so the market doesn't pick up straight away whether it's in oversold territory or not. There's a bit of catch-up time required. So those are the stocks that you can identify with technical analysis to pick up early. The penny stocks are the ones below $1. You hear me talk about it all the time. Cheap stocks, but they're not necessarily cheap. They could actually send you broke if you follow that path down. So I suggest look for value rather than cheap.
Well, that's what Buffett talks about, you know, price is what you pay, value is what you get. And he's not necessarily relating that to the actual value of he's talking about the value of the share, not the actual price of the share when he's talking about that. So, but now we've got some stocks, haven't we, Phil? So let's get straight into some of those stocks.
Yeah, why not? All right, so let's get on the screen and start off with Drone Shield. Now, I'm sure all of you are aware of this stock because Drone Shield, we were looking at back in 2023 November, went for a huge run, and it's a really nice example of what we're going to cover today. We're going to cover off cheap stocks that, you know, this one has been in the news today, expanding out into Europe, and that's one thing I did want to say. When you are looking at, you know, just to add to your point on cheap, there is that combination that you do look for because Buffett also buys companies that make money.
Yes.
And so, you know, when you are looking for price appreciation in the future, you're looking at good companies that can provide that. But the key, as we do show every week here, is knowing when to get in. Because as Janine said, you can sit in stocks for ages, dwindling sideways until that move gets going. But anyway, let's get to the chart and have a look at Drone Shield. Now, this is one of those ones, obviously, the market, you know, saw a huge run up from 44 cents up into $2.60. It's in a space that is really beaming right now. Drones, you know, technology, robotics, if you will. Had a decent pullback down to about 60 cents, but not uncommon given the nature of this euphoric rise. Found its feet above these highs in March 17 and 19 at that 60 cent level. Showed buys, and this is what we're talking about in terms of it still is relatively cheap today to what it was about 3 or 4 or 6 months ago, if you will. Big news coming in, again, as I said, expansion out in Europe. That's only going to add to the share price if they play it right moving forward. And you're seeing buys already interacting. You're seeing higher highs and higher lows unfolding on the stock. And if you just closely look at the nature of the runs up, it's very evident when the market goes up, it goes up way stronger than it's falling right now. And most recently, we've seen that with the movement back in last week. So we've taken out highs, we've taken out the $1.48 level high through there, closing strongly, big volume coming in over the recent history of this stock. Everything's pointing to that buyers are in control now, and the market's only going to run up from here.
All right, let's look at the next one, Janine. That's Next DC, I believe, on the list, is it?
Oh, yes, please. Okay, so Next DC, we've got theirs, had a big fall. I would call that almost a crash, you know, just the way that it's fallen down there at the bottom. But it sort of didn't go any further. It's a 50% fall, which is in the territory of that. At the moment, we've seen a bit of sideways consolidation at the bottom here, followed by a rise and a bit more consolidation, which is nice. That's good to see that sort of thing happening rather than it just go off. And then, you know, if it just kept going, the chances are that it's going to have a bigger correction. But at the moment, it's steady as she goes. And I'm not surprised. If you look at the left-hand side, you can see the resistance there where it stopped again. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4 times it stopped at that level. So it's showing the strength there. But it's still got the momentum, I guess, to continue the rise. However, I'd rather it just settle down right now and pull back, go sideways for a bit longer, maybe a couple of months before it then moves up again. So there's a bit more underneath the rise, a bit more under the trend.
So what do you mean by that? You're talking about buyer support, or you're talking?
Well,
I'd
like more profit takers to come in and just sell off their holdings right now, so that we see that the price depreciate a little bit. Yep. And settle down, because it needs to really settle down to get a more permanent trend in place.
You're thinking because it took off like a rocket. I mean, it went up like 50% or something from just in my head. And, you know, I'm a trader, not a mathematician, but it went up like a rocket. So now you're saying, well, maybe it went too fast.
This is a more medium-term thinking, you know, coming in here. Short-term thinking, this is a beautiful little setup that we're seeing here. Yep. Could be followed by another little short rise, but I'm just hoping that that's not the case right now, although Phil's going to say the opposite, I know.
Well, I mean, you know, yeah, I am a little bit, if you would just go to the chart and have a look, because, you know, when you're coming out of these significant lows and you look at a stock like this, now this is an interesting case, because on one hand, it I believe return on equity is negative, but it's in a space where, you know,
it's a growth space. It's in data centres.
Exactly.
So AI is growing data centres.
Yes, and the share price has proven, you know, since 2015, it can gain traction higher and higher. And this correction through here, right now, to me, the interesting part is you look at all the buyer interaction through this downtrend. What we've seen here is very different. This is big buying. So to me, I like it. I'm happy that that's happening at a major low. I wouldn't discount that. I wouldn't want it to go lower.
I'm more bullish like you, Phil. I'm really bullish on this one. Anyway, next stock, I'm going to give back to you, Phil.
All right.
Metcash, I think, isn't it?
Yeah, Metcash. All right, let's get to this one. I just want to bring up the monthly here because, again, it's another stock that you can clearly see if we apply a horizontal line through here. It's struggled getting its head above $4.21 throughout recent history. But even in light of that, what's happened since 2022? It's almost had a 40% correction. Now, Janine, you know, when we're looking at stocks, 40, 50 odd % correction, and then put that into context to what has been happening prior, you know, back through this period, we're in a big downtrend, okay. But since 2015, we're in a strong uptrend. And a 40% correction in there, that to me is opportunity to look at the stock. We've seen good buying come in right now. If we go to the weekly chart through here, I like the fact that we've bounced a few times as well on this level of support, and now we're seeing that buyer interaction. We're talking about looking at stocks at the safe time to look at them. This to me is the safe time. We've had 6 or 7 weeks straight up. You've not seen that at all anywhere throughout this downtrend. So am I saying buy today? No, but I'm saying look at this stock. And the only other thing I'll add is that, you know, a lot of people look at a chart like this and go, oh, it's down here at $3. The previous all-time high was $5. So automatically my mind thinks, it's got to go back to $5, but that's not true.
No,
yeah, that's right.
And so, you know, having that mindset can be more detrimental than not to your trading. So when you go look at that chart, it's always wise to, I guess, plan for the worst. And from that scenario, a move up to $4.28 is what I would be expecting would be reasonable if now the buyers are in control.
But I think you raised a really, really good point because, I mean, yeah, it was $5 and people think if it's like $3, oh, that's cheap because they think it's worth $5. No, it just traded at $5.
Yeah, that's right.
So at $3, it could still be expensive because it might be worth $1 at that point. It's just the same as a $100 share could be worth $300, so it's cheap. But a 10-cent share could be worth 1 cent, and so it's very expensive. Because
we used to be able to look at the PE ratios and think, you know, logically, this is expensive, this is cheap, and people are trying to say now that these stocks are expensive, but things can change pretty quickly. PE ratios can change, so it's not about getting fixed on the fundamentals, is it?
No, it's not, and that's what I'm saying. It's about the price of the share in reference to the value that it is worth, not necessarily just looking at the price of the share. And I talk about this in my book, about cheap stocks. And it's the biggest myth that I find investors and traders have is about cheap stocks. They think everything's got to be under $1 and it's cheap, and anything over $1 is expensive, or anything over $10 is expensive, and it's completely the opposite is true. You can still get this book for free. You've just got to pay the shipping. Head off to our website, wealthwithin.com.au, head onto the store. You'll be able to pick up the book. I've paid for the printing. You just got to pay for it to get to your front door, but get onto our website and get it now. Now we've got another stock. Which one's this one? And I'll go to Janine now.
All right, thank you very much. Nine Entertainment Co Holdings. This is a really volatile stock that we're looking at right now. It's trading just at around $1.60. I actually, look, for a lower liquidity stock and a volatile stock, I actually don't mind the way that it's unfolded off this bottom here and the way that it's setting up here. Is it cheap right now? I mean, we're talking relative to these highs. No. There's a consolidation around that $2 mark, which is a really interesting level for this stock. I think that if it can shoot up to around these $2.20, and I think relative to what it could be worth, right, if it gets going, it is priced lower. But there's this little gap down here, which always, gets me, especially on these type of stocks, whether it's going to fill that gap or not. It could do. It's consolidating at the moment, but I would just wait for a higher trough. That would be my proviso with this one.
You're being
before
conservative,
entering.
is that what you're saying?
I would, yes.
What do you reckon,
Phil's
Phil?
looking.
You're not saying be conservative.
No. If we go to the chart and just have a quick look, I mean, to me, the real giveaway here is $1.40, right? At $1.40, you've seen it really fine. If you want to talk about support in history of what is maybe cheap or value, $1.40 or thereabouts is where this stock has really taken off in the past. And again, this buying that we've seen through January, this strong buying, the way the sellers really tried but weren't able to take out these lows at around $1.27, to me, still holds this uptrend in place. And now we've had 7 weeks up, volume picking up. I'm with Janine. I think looking at it now is really the opportune moment. But above $2, I'm not going to get too excited. Yes, look, she's right. That's all I need to say. Yeah.
Did I hear correctly?
I said it the long way around, but we got there in the end.
This is being recorded and you're saying Janine's right. Well done there. How about you keep going? We've got one more stock
all right.
firstly, but I think we've got some awesome stocks coming up soon too.
Yeah, we've got 10 to cover, so stay tuned. But anyway, let's get to the next one, which is GQG Partners. Now, not much history on this stock, so I mean, probably not one that Janine, you would be looking at. But again, the company does make money. It's come off a huge basing out, I guess, unfolding that we do see with stocks time and time again. It's so funny that regardless of the company, they all unfold in these very, I guess, repeatable type patterns. We show it in our course, so our students would know that. But this is one of those classic examples. Comes near all-time low, huge accumulation, that big expansionary phase, and then it's common to see a pullback if there is going to be a sustainable trend coming out of this. We've had that pullback back towards that previous IPO level, tested it twice. Now we're starting to see buyer interaction.
So this is a CHESS depository interest stock.
Yep.
So that would suggest it's an international stock on our exchange, doesn't it?
Well, that's a good question, Darren.
That's why I was asking you. I've got you on this desk as an expert,
Yeah.
and same with Janine. So I'm trying to give all of our viewers the best of what we can do.
Yeah, well, look, the best answer to that I can give is you can very easily go on that Market Index website and find out. But it is an Australian listed stock to get into it. And look, what to me is...
Good comeback.
Is that not bad?
It's interesting though, isn't it? Because we're just so focused on direction. We just want to see whether there's an opportunity, don't we?
I think at the end of the day, that's the value, right? Is there an opportunity? Is there money to be made from these, stocks? And as you all know, it's one thing knowing the ins and outs, but when do you get in? Yep. That's when the money's made, right?
When do you get in and when do you get out? That's what most people are struggling with.
Yeah. And right now, this one is not I guess, giving such clear indication because it could continue to go sideways. So I would be watching the level $2.50 through here and also what is happening around, this comes on, around $2. So stuck in a range right now, but we know stocks in ranges like back through here, at some point they're going to blow out. So it's a must watch.
Well, later on in the show, we're going to cover off some more cheap ASX stocks that won't stay that way for long. And if you're wondering, yep, the answer is yes. We have saved the best till last, but now it's time to talk all things market trending this week. Janine, you're the queen on this.
Well, we're constantly hearing about scammers and cyber criminals ripping off innocent people in the crypto world. take a look at this article which shows Australian authorities are targeting cryptocurrency ATMs and tightening regulations amid reports of widespread scamming and money laundering. I think there should be tougher requirements on ATM operators because they're targeting anyone, including the elderly. And so does this put another dent in the viability of the crypto space moving forward, or is it still full steam ahead?
Very interesting. I've only heard this the other day, and I'm surprised. Like, I'm not surprised you brought this up, but they're suddenly putting, like, I've seen some of these crypto ATMs in some shopping centres, but very few. But now they said they're putting them everywhere, and I'm thinking, oh God, mum and dads are going to lose all their money.
There was some amazing, in the last 12 months, I think it was some figure like 200 or 300 million has been scammed from these ATMs. So they're really trying to crack down on it.
You see the signs in different places. You know, if somebody wants you to pay, says you owe them money and they don't want you to pay them in cryptocurrency, then it's probably a scam. But, you know, it's like going to an ATM in a shopping centre to do this sort of stuff. It just reeks with issues to me.
Yeah, you wonder how people get caught up in that, don't you?
Well, it's weird right now because you've got on one hand, you know, the Bitcoin and Ethereum being, I guess, somewhat promoted by some very powerful people, Donald Trump in the US, and they're, you know, moving it towards a so-called more regulated type environment. And so that's tricking people into also then getting into these type scammy type environments, you know, trading on unregulated exchanges, buying these coins that are, who knows what they do, right? And then also doing the physical or the ATM type stuff with crypto. So I feel for I guess, individuals out there that are thinking, hey, it looks legitimate on one hand, but then there are so many loopholes in there that are tripping people up and getting scammed.
Oh, there's huge. I mean, there's two reasons to buy crypto, to me, in my book. One is you want to hide your money from the government. That's how they originally started, people wanting to really not be accountable for every cent that they've got. And then the second group of people is all the speculators who buy an unregulated market. You know, and I often say to people, there's no value in crypto. There's nothing supporting it like a currency where a government or a country is supporting all of that. Or you're buying a stock where you've got a physical asset. With crypto, you actually don't have an asset. And so that's the thing. You need to understand if you're going to invest in it, you're going to need to know how to invest in it and how it works. But, you know,
and timing is so critical, as we saw from Bitcoin.
It's very critical with crypto, and crypto will crash again. I'm not being negative on crypto, but it's going to be a lot more volatile because it's that whole one more fool theory. You just need somebody else to buy higher than you and you can sell. But because there's no asset, they're generating income like a BHP or a bank. It's going to be more volatile. It's going to, because it's not linked to something like that. But anyway, since we're on the topic of crypto, and I'm not trying to be negative about it, how about we take a look at some charts of crypto? So I'm going to go to you, Phil.
Yeah, let's go to the two major ones and start off with Bitcoin first. So looking at the Bitcoin chart, I mean, look, it's been a no-brainer. This one has been all over major headlines, trading at all-time highs, you know, broken 107 now. We have seen this in the past, Dale, as you mentioned, back in 2021, this market, once it took out the all-time high in November, we saw a huge sell-off, about 60-odd%. Right now, we've managed to continuously provide growth. We're coming up to the 6th or 7th leg up, which is quite unusual for Bitcoin, I must admit, because it has not been 6 or 7 legs up on a monthly time frame, big term time frame, before we do see that crash. So you might be spot on with what you're talking about.
Crypto, like I've studied timing on crypto, and it's dirt easy. If you understand what you're doing, it's dirt easy to make a shed load of money. I just don't want to play in an unregulated market. So I've spent a lot of time doing it. So there is good money for traders who know what they're doing, but the average mum and dad, and the topic is, you know, about these ATMs, the average person should not necessarily be in crypto.
Yeah.
Because there's going to be a time it's going to crash again and people are going to lose a lot of money because people buy at the top and sell at the bottom because they're trying to be greedy.
And what I found, I mean, the mindset around crypto is very different to, I guess, what we're accustomed to when we're talking investing or trading. It's this mindset that crypto will replace the monetary system that we have today. And so it's like hold forever. And I mean, that's the mindset, which when people, I know friends buy crypto and they say, well, no, you know, crypto, you hold it, you buy it and you hold it forever. And I'm thinking,
they're going to get caught.
Are you sure about that? How does that mindset coming in light of what you've seen with crypto in the past to fall 60 or 70%? So it's an interesting dynamic with...
But just talking about the trend, right, because if we just look at the chart, if this was a stock, this is booming. right? But it's because you think about it as crypto that it's like more, let's be cautious. So when I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, okay, we all know that when something's been rising strongly, there's going to be a peak. We've just seen one and it's just gone through it. So therefore, we've got potentially another buy point here. Then it's just a question of risk, isn't it? It's a question of, okay, if you buy it, then how are you going to manage that? And, you know, we've got plenty of rules, solid rules that could work on crypto, that can work on stocks, that can work on any currency. And I can just see it looks
easier to trade if you know what you're doing.
Yeah, when you go to the weekly chart, it just stands out. It looks
all Phil and I think are saying is, if you're going to have crypto, you've got to expect 50 to 90% falls. You've got to expect it.
Yeah.
Whereas if you have a currency, if you have Aussie dollars or US dollars, you're never going to see that.
Yeah.
So crypto's a lot safer. So
well, don't say never.
No, well, you won't, you know, unless you're Argentina, you know, and you get into this hyperinflation and things like that. So with crypto, you know, unless you're buying cups of coffee all the time, and it's not going to be a regular currency. And I don't think governments are going to allow that type of thing. And I know there'll be people watching this going, you guys don't know anything about crypto, whatever else. And we do. But the thing is, it's about, there's some sort of peace of mind for some people in ignorance is bliss. They don't fully understand how that crypto market actually works. If you know what you're doing, shed loads of money to be made. But if you're an average, ordinary investor, watch it. That's pretty much.
I mean, in a boom, so we're talking about a boom over the next.
We need to look at another stock.
But just hold one moment.
Sorry.
In a boom, 2 to 3 years, if everything's booming, crypto should boom as well.
Should, possibly.
So there should be time.
So let's look at Ethereum.
Yeah, look, let's do that. Let's go to Ethereum because this one, the story is a little different to Bitcoin. Obviously, a lot more volatile, experiencing a lot more in terms of corrections relative to Bitcoin, and not trading anywhere near the all-time high. That's, I guess, the big takeaway for me. But to that point, if you are looking to trade, and that's the point here, if you are going to trade these kinds of markets, really, if you don't know your technicals, I mean, good luck trying to do it because, as you said, what does this do? What does it earn? And so trying to find that fundamental intrinsic value is a much harder task than doing it on a stock that gives you earnings, that has assets, that has liabilities.
Yeah, all of a sudden there's an announcement and your share takes off.
How do you value
it? Crypto.
It's very news-based right now. So I would argue, I mean, knowing especially the stuff that we do here in terms of the price analysis and then overlaying that with really understanding what you're trying to get out of this. I mean, to me, if I was getting involved in this market, it's trading the market, and that is it. Getting in and taking the opportunities when they come. Sitting in these kinds of markets, I don't know. I'm not comfortable with sitting with 70, 80, 90% falls just because of a long-winded belief. But anyway.
If Trump said, we're going to shut down the crypto market today, it'd drop 90% on the spot. But if he said, something about the stock market, it's never going to do that. So there's a big difference between the two anyway. But it is time now to move back into our topic for the night and reveal some more of those interesting cheap stocks that are looking like they're ready to explode right now. I'm going to go to you, Janine. What's the first one on the list?
All right, it's Monadelphous Group, which looks fantastic. This thing's taken off. You can see here that it's got some overhead resistance at the moment, but it's looking really nice. It's just broken through that prior high. We can see there some really long-term levels of support and resistance coming in here for this stock, which it's still under the influence of. And, you know, we've got this zone here of, I guess you don't want it to go back into that zone, but it still could. It's possible that it could just come back in and test that. But I think it's setting up and looking like it could take off and break these highs here in 2019. Right now, that gets a tick from me, but in the short term, would you get in it right now after having 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 or 6 or 7 weeks up there? It depends on whether that's a higher high or not. Probably I'd wait and let it settle down, just see if it comes back, because often these sideways moves are tested by a pullback. That's what I'd be watching for, but following a nice little pullback and a move back up should be good.
Great stock if our mining or our commodities take off, isn't it?
Isn't it?
Absolutely. If we start seeing BHP, Rio, Fortescue, and now obviously our commodities take off, this stock will go through the roof with those. You got any thoughts on it, Phil?
Oh, no. I mean, like you said, Janine, if anything, it's like, to me, when I look at the monthly chart, what's the most important part is where it's come from. And when you're looking at just immediately what was on the left, it's come out of that huge basing pattern.
Yep.
So that's the crucial part for me. We're breaking out now, and so it's all about lining up, as you said, get that timing right, get the opportunity right, and ride it to what it's going to give. I would say from a safe perspective, $22 should be your, I guess, initial target where you think this stock can get to, $21, $22. Once it gets through there, if it gets through there, then you can think bigger picture.
All right, let's lead us into the next one, Phil.
All right, so next we have Smart Group Corporation. Now, this is
What a nice name for a company,
yes,
Smart Group.
Smart Group. And the share price looks pretty smart too, to be honest. Going on the monthly chart here, and right now it's one of those ones, obviously it's been, I guess, fluttering around $11, if you will. And if I can get my mouse to work, there you go, around $11. There you go. It's not playing funny.
So that's the most important level for you.
Yeah, we've got $11 and we've got this level at around $6. So right now you can see it's been stuck through there. So I would argue, given we're still range bound, this is more of a, I guess, trader type opportunity. Really the confirmation will come above $10. But then if you're looking at it above $10, are you willing to give up a lot of opportunity that is from around now to that level? So I would argue the way that the market has bounced from January 2023, tested a hugely important level back in COVID. And we know a lot of stocks did that. They tested those COVID lows and went on with things. That was a huge marker. We've done that. Had almost a year of just solid buying. And that's nothing to sneeze at, because that really proves no seller interaction here. What kind of buying is that? That's really strong, right? We've now had the sellers come in, we're testing that buying, but you can clearly see they're trying to go lower. And in fact, you know, they're struggling on their way down. We're testing previous lows, but not really charging lower like we did on the upside in terms of time. That was at least half of what that's done in terms of time. And the sellers have managed to only take out half. So I would say from here, watch very closely. If it can turn the corner above the February 25 high, then I would argue it's going to go back and test 1040.
So what you're saying in layman's terms is the momentum, the downward momentum is slowing.
Yes.
So you're just waiting for it to stop and start to move up.
Well, there you go.
There you go. See, I am learning things, aren't I?
You'll go with that. That was good, wasn't it? Yeah, go with it.
That's cool. I'm going to go to you for the next one, Janine.
All right. WDS. Now, Pedro would be proud to be talking about this one right now. It's looking quite strong. We've got the close last week up really strongly at the top of the bar there. The good sign that it started to take off. But for me, I'm still very cautious on Woodside just because of the volatility of it. And if we look at that high, and I've just picked up the wrong thing now, I'll just get rid of that one. I need this one. There we go.
Energy did well last week.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's starting to show some signs of life, and Woodside, I know you probably didn't mention, but you know, it's signed that big contract to become the biggest LNG provider out there. So there are things.
Well, 1 week doesn't make a sheep station.
Exactly, but
we'll see what happens over the next few weeks. But if the energy sector keeps moving, then this could be a nice one.
Look,
Janine's
for me,
not agreeing with us yet.
No, for me, it's still too risky. It's got to get through this level here at least and prove itself, because right now it could be something could come up. Something always comes up with these energy stocks to turn them back down. So,
it's been annoying, hasn't it?
Isn't it?
Yeah.
Hey,
so I think
eventually Telstra turned around after 10 years of going down. It turned around and it's doing really well the last 6 months.
That's true.
So in Janine's famous words, never say never.
That's true.
So it could be going up soon.
Yeah.
Could.
Oh, yeah.
But so you got any comments you want to say?
No, I'm with Janine. Obviously not enough yet. I mean, we're coming in, especially on the weekly chart. Look at this huge selling through here. We're still yet to take that out. I'd like to see this downtrend reverse to showing some kind of practical buyer uptrend involvement, which is those higher bases. And
Okay. All right. Next stock, Phil.
All right. Next one is IPH Limited. Now, this is another one where when you're looking at it in terms of potential value, hey, maybe at these levels, but is the moment right now? I would say not just yet. But
Can I ask you a question?
yes.
There was a comment on the video from yesterday or something. Somebody says, why do you keep showing stocks on a downward move, downtrend? Why don't you just show them all in an uptrend?
Yeah.
How about you answer that one?
Well, two things. A lot of the stocks we did show today are in that uptrend, but the more important part about that is because it's trying to get early to the party as well. You see, with the skills that Wealth Within does have here that you will be able to learn is that when you can get to a party early enough, you can allow yourself the time to prepare. What are my targets? Where am I getting to? And really eke out that risk-reward type scenario, because at the end of the day, that's what it's about. You're only going to put your hard-earned money in a stock if you know that with some degree of certainty or a high degree of probability that it's worth putting your money into that, right? And so there's no good buying a stock after it's in the news and you hear, oh, CBA's up 50%, time to buy. It's like,
You can't buy yesterday's return.
yeah, and I find that happens a lot in the financial industry. I mean, you know, even at the, I guess, professional end, it's advisors looking at reports from, you know, funds that have performed on last year's returns. And it's like, well, hang on a second, that was last year.
Yeah.
Where's the opportunity this year?
Yeah.
And, you know, we're seeing that with financials today. We've seen it with the tech sector. They're not as strong as they were last year.
Yep.
And so in a roundabout way to answer your question, that's why it pays to be early to the party. And that's why we look at charts that are sometimes not ready, but, you know, about ready.
All right. What's your last take on the stock?
Again, this is one that's probably not ready, but there are two things that are really different right now that are lining up to me. Volume's picking up a lot at a significant low. That's important. And right now we've come and we've tested it, albeit we're on the weekly chart, we're starting to print those higher bases. So watch this one closely. If I was to apply for a bit of, I guess, confirmation here, unless it gets through here, for the more medium-term play, I would say wait. But
Could be a short-term play.
watch, yeah.
Okay, Janine, your next one?
Next one is Karoon Energy, which is an interesting one. So this has actually come back to test that low and then bounced off that bottom. And that's one of the things that we often talk about on the show. This is also something that we teach our students to look for as to how stocks unfold and testing these lows. Often stocks can break through trend lines. They can come back to test the lows, but not take them out. And that can actually be a really strong position if it holds up. You can even start trailing your stop loss if you get a good entry under the lows as it continues to rise up. And I think it's worth doing it with this sort of stock because we can see the nature of it. Look there, big reversals. We can see lots of reversals through here. It tends to move up really quickly, but also can move down really quickly as well. We've seen lots of pullbacks in price that were quite strong when it's falling away. And again here into this low. So, you know, I've seen even people who are learning when they're first starting, they'll be trading a stock. They might get in on something that they think is at the bottoms. You know, they think it's not cheap, but a good opportunity based on rules. And the stock might reverse, not take out their stop, but give them a bit of a scare because it's actually all of a sudden fallen away. And that's just because of the volatility of the stock that they're trading.
But some people buy when they're falling away, just to add to what Phil was talking about. But they're buying while it's falling and falling and falling rather than waiting for confirmation that we talk about. So they buy it and it keeps falling away. I mean, this stock...
Students wouldn't.
No, our students and graduates don't do that. We teach them not to do that. But I'm talking about people that are out there that I talk to all the time, you know, and they're saying, oh, I bought this and now it's this and it's gone down 20 or 30%. But also they try and buy it. They go, oh, I want to buy it because it feels like it's cheap or it seems cheap to me because it was $5 and now it's $3. But what we've got to look at, this stock's gone up roughly 50% since that low, that second low. And it's looking great. There's tons of upside and people will look at it and go, oh, I've missed 50%. No, you haven't. You've got a better trade that's lower risk and a higher probable trade to go up because this thing looks really good to me.
Oh, yeah.
To me, it's
Really
also
good.
about the right stop loss as well that you're set for the trade. So, I mean, just to give you an idea as to how swift this thing can move, if we look at that down, I mean, 27% fall. Now, depending on where you got in, if you got in somewhere here, then perhaps you would be, you know, down at that time, 22, 23. So it's about understanding what sort of stop loss as well you need to set for these more volatile stocks.
Yeah, well, we know 90+% of people don't use stop loss, including traders, which is one of the most important things. Anything you want to say before we move?
No, I think the only other thing I would add is if we just zoom this weekly chart out is that have a look at the volume coming in, particularly since 2020. It is dwarfing any volume in the past, especially what we're seeing recently, and that is coming out of this major low. And I mean, this is a company, okay, it's in the energy space, but it is, again, it's producing, it's earning, it's making profit, and it's, if you're talking about one of these cheap type opportunities, I always like to look back to the left-hand side to see where is it coming from. It's not coming from what we've seen in 2013. It's actually coming off a significant low on huge volume since COVID in a strong uptrend.
I like it.
So I like it. Yeah.
Most important question of the night to both of you. what's your favourite stock out of those top 10? Janine, you're first. What's your favourite?
I think even though you gave me a
Woodside, I
hard
know,
time
that's perfect.
about NextDC, I like NextDC that we talked about
It was
previously.
close. It was 3 letters.
Yeah.
Phil?
This one here.
This one here, Karoon Energy. There you go. I don't know. I'm not sure which one I like. Didn't mind NextDC. I didn't mind that one, but I also didn't mind IPH either. But I think I'm a little bit more with Phil anyway. But if you want the skills to analyse stocks just like you've seen tonight, visit our website, wealthwithin.com.au. Now, moving on shortly, we have an amazing hot stock tip this week coming from Phil. But first, let's answer your questions. Now, Tim writes, what is the difference between an ETF and a LIC? How are dividends distributed from a LIC, and how does the imputation credit affect the overall return? Could you please also take a look at the LIC name WAM? ETF and a listed investment company. Who do I go to?
I'm looking this way.
I'll go to Janine. What's the difference between an ETF and a listed investment company? And then we'll get into the dividend bit.
I mean, a LIC is essentially a listed company, right?
So
whereas
it's a company.
an ETF is a fund, right? So there's the difference. So an ETF is open-ended in that they can continue to take more funds, whereas a LIC, you're paying whatever the price is, when it's trading on the market, and it's a company that you're investing in. So the price can move up and down, but the ETF has to provide the market for you.
So the ETF comes from a market maker who provides the market, and the more money that goes in, the more units they issue, like a fund. Okay. If people sell the ETF, then they collapse those units from that thing. Whereas a LIC is a share in a company, and that company invests in stocks on the market. So therefore, that tells me that's finite necessarily, unless they do a corporate action. The shares are finite, and you're buying whatever that, and as the value of the shares go up that the LIC owns, the more the value of the share is. Yep. Cool. Okay, dividends, difference between them.
Well, it can vary a lot. I mean, it depends on what we're looking at with the ETFs. ETFs can vary significantly in terms of their makeup. And the listed companies like a share.
ETFs pay dividends?
I can't remember whether all of them do, whether all of them don't, sorry.
But they would collect it if they actually own the shares, they'll collect it in there.
Yeah, I'm not sure whether all of them do. So there's so many ETFs now, so I wouldn't want to make a blanket statement. But the LICs are like a share. So essentially, if you get dividends, then you're getting imputation credits for those. That's why some people like them.
Okay, so from a listed investment company, a LIC, the dividends are just like any other company. You'll get them twice a year, probably like any other company. If they come with franking credits, they're treated just like any other company. Whereas obviously dividends from a ETF might be different, because the shares aren't specifically in your name with an ETF. It's held by the fund. So therefore, how do they pass on the franking credits into that? What do they do? So that's the complex thing. So my suggestion is to read up, grab one of the big ETF documents the ETF providers, one of their documents explaining their product, and have a look at how they treat dividends, etc., on that document, because they're all going to be a little bit different. Whereas a listed investment company is going to treat it just the same as any normal share, like a BHP or a bank. Anything you want to add, Phil?
No, we're
waiting for your words of wisdom.
I try to stay away from. Look,
All right, so let's look at WAM for Tim anyway. I'm going to give this one to you, Phil, because you want to technically analyse.
Yes, all right. So we're on the monthly chart here. Let's stick there with WAM. Now, this is WAM Capital Limited.
Yep.
I actually don't mind what is unfolding with this stock. And the reason I say that is because we are coming into a nice little period of potential accumulation, which I've highlighted there. It's quite common for stocks that do base out near bottoms for that to be the bottom, but it's also... it needs to be said that this could just be a pause before another leg lower. And so to me, the real answer comes in what the breakout...
Well, you're going to know pretty quick, aren't you?
Unless it continues to go sideways. But if we, break above $1.70, I believe it is there, and once we get above or below $1.39, we'll know where the future direction for this is. So when you're stuck in this quite tight range-bound market where there's no opportunity in there, in terms of taking some short trades when you factor in, I guess, some spreads and costs, and you're not going to get in at the top and the bottom. Really, I see no opportunity through here. If it breaks 170, then I would start looking at it. If it breaks down below 139, then it's going to go lower.
Well, there you go. Wise words from Phil. So well done, mate. You made a good save of that one. Anyway, next is Matt, who writes, what do you think about Whitehaven Coal for a short-term trade? I have it breaking a trend line on a weekly chart and bouncing off a long-term trend line on the monthly. He said I can see resistance at $5.96 and $6.50, but if it gets through those levels, $9 is next with a 40% upside. What do you reckon, Phil? I'll keep you going.
All right, fine. Let's go to the chart and have a look. Now, you know what I love about this, Dale?
Yeah.
Is that his upside target is, well thought out.
$9, yeah?
Yeah, well thought out and reasonable because, like we spoke earlier and
He's
people...
obviously a student.
Yeah.
Grad.
Yeah, well, absolutely. People would be looking at this, which we have had in the past. They'll look at it at $5, say, okay, the stock's fallen 50-odd%. It's come back into this really nice level of support, which has been previous resistance at about $5.50. That's all good and well, but they're looking at it thinking, okay, it's got to get above $11 now. That'll be my next target because we're clearly in a long-term uptrend. And so that is the thinking that can really trip up traders to continue to hold for highs to be broken, even though a sell might be screaming at you once it gets to that $9. So I totally agree. Maybe if it's not exactly $9, I think somewhere in here, $7.80 all the way down to $7.50 would be the safe play in terms of where you should see potential roadblocks to the upside if you're going to see it. And so, the fact that it's broken this momentum line, that's a first for a very long time, which is great news. Volume's quite nice as well. Really strong buying. We've had, look at that, 8 weeks.
Great, doesn't it?
Isn't it? 8 weeks up.
Why was it on your top 10 list?
Oh, because there was an email coming through. I thought I can't double dip. But,
Good answer.
It could have been, but I mean, you just need to look at this downtrend. Where have we seen 8 weeks of strong, sustained buying in the past since 2024 July? We haven't.
We haven't.
There's the clue.
It looks awesome. Anyway, moving on. Jules now writes, interested in your thoughts on Metcash. Not yet in the stock, but it has piqued my interest as it is close to breaking its longer-term monthly downtrend line. Waiting for my back-tested rules to trigger, but looking for a medium to long-term trade with a stop at the last monthly trough. Janine, this sounds like another one of our students, doesn't it?
It does, and it actually is a repeat of a stock that you had in your top 10. So Metcash was one of the ones that we had earlier, wasn't it?
Well, there you go.
And it's actually just broken out. Like Jules is right. There is a nice little break above the angle of that line, but it's still quite close to it. It's a bit early because it's still hugging that line. You can see the close last week there. So it'd be really nice to see this come back, pull back into the range of that move up the last 2 months and then take off through the line. Then I'd be excited about it. But right now, because you've got so much happening there, and you've got these previous peaks here as well, which you can't always, with stocks like this, you've got to try to find the centre for where it's likely to be strongest, which could be somewhere around this zone here. So it's just showing that little area there is a high point of resistance and it just needs to get above it, and it should be really nice.
All right, well, Jules is an absolute legend on this stock. Sounds like they really do know what they're talking about. But Angelo's email is next. He said, I recently entered ALX following a break above the long-term downtrend, and I'd love to hear your thoughts on this one for the medium to long term. I am expecting a small counter trend in coming weeks and have my stop loss placed on the previous low to protect my initial capital. So I'm currently working through the Forex CFD course you provide and can't express how much it has improved my trading. It's really a testament to your team. If anyone out there is considering the education, you won't regret it. Take your time, get it right, and you have the skills for a lifetime of financial freedom. I don't know whether that's a testimonial. He wants to look at a stock, but that's great. I love the CFD FX course. It just kicks butt, doesn't it?
Yeah, well, it just proves that, what we teach is applicable to, and we've said it before, it's applicable to all markets, whether it be crypto, FX, it's price at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, well, it is. I mean, when I was on the phone the other week, people were going, can you teach me to day trade? Can you teach me crypto? Can you teach me FX? Can you teach? I just teach you to trade. You do what you like. Whatever time frame you want, I'll teach you. Whatever market you want, I'll teach you. That's fine. I'll teach you to be a good trader. Like today, I can know both of you can trade any market that you choose to trade on any single time frame. You just go and look at that market and go, how does crypto work? How does FX work? How does, this other types of options or commodities or whatever else? You just trade it. But let's get to the stock, otherwise I'll get on my high horse on my box, and then Janine will get her boxing gloves out, and then I'm in trouble.
All right.
How about we look at the stock? Go for it, Janine, your turn.
Okay.
How about you?
ALX, now this is an interesting one, isn't it? It's always a challenge to work out whether these trends have actually stopped falling. And what's really interesting with it is the COVID low is way down here. It hasn't come back to test that low. It hasn't taken it out. Is this an aberration? And I was having a discussion with some advanced traders on our forum, trading forum the other night about that. And you've got to look at it in a couple of different ways, I think. There's one school of thought that says, here's a really nice angle on this stock that it's actually respected. Well, isn't that crazy that the COVID low, how does this even happen? That you get these angles and the COVID low comes down, and then we've got this recent low and it's also found support there. But why this is so important to understand this stuff is because not just because of your buy and sells, but it's when you're in the trade. How many people, when they're in the trade, they get nervous, they're not sure what to do. You've always got your back testing and your analysis to go back to make that decision.
Well, there's an old saying that knowledge is the enemy of fear. If you're fearful about anything, you don't have enough knowledge. So if you're in a stock and it's falling away and you're fearful, that's a big sign. It's ringing the bell to say you don't have enough knowledge. Whereas our
Come and
students
see Dale.
Our students have a plan. If I'm buying, this is what I'm doing. If I'm in the stock, this is what I'm doing. If it goes up, this is what I'm doing if it goes down. If you know that, no fear.
Yep.
Simple as that. Keep going.
Okay, cool.
Is that all right?
Well, that's what he's done exactly.
That's exactly what he's done.
That's the beautiful thing about it.
And I mean, he probably already knows that if he looks at this low here, it's significant. The stock has actually come down a few times. You can see there to find support there. So if the stock goes back below that level, hey, you wouldn't be in that. And it's repeated a similar sort of thing here. It's actually come down, broken down, pushed up, pulled back and taken off again. So are we about to see a nice strong move up for this stock is a possibility. It could go either way. There's always a possibility it could come back and test this low and then take it out. But right now, the momentum's pushing towards the upside, even if it's a little uneasy. It looks okay.
An email of a really confident person because he's bought in, it's moved up, he knows it's going to come back for a couple of weeks, he knows what it's going to be, and he's going to hang on to it. I love this email. Any comments from you, Phil?
No, it couldn't be better. I mean, that just shows the mindset, like you said, the confidence. It's like, not only am I buying this now, I'm actually expecting, given it's up for 5-6 weeks, that I'm going to get a pullback. And if the pullback is a little further to where it should be, I'm just going to sell the stock and move on. And, that's how it's done.
Well, there's only two things we can control in the market is when we buy and when we sell. Everything else is up to the market. But anyway, maybe there's a show in that one. But anyway, now is the time for our hot stock tip for the week. I'm going to go back to you on that one, Phil, because I know it's a rip snorter today.
Yes, I've actually been a bit cheeky today. So I've
just today?
Given I've had a few weeks off, I've picked something a little bit speculative. So I'm waiting for Janine to send a boxing glove my way very shortly. But the hot stock tip today is Firefly Metals, FFM. Now, I want to bring your attention to an announcement they did today. And, in this space where it is a little bit specky, you do like to
$1.
Under $1, yes.
Okay.
You do like to see announcements like this. Now, they've, achieved a placement of $100 million to drive growth. We know companies that are under that dollar level, they do really rely.
It's pretty significant.
Yeah, and they really rely on these types of contracts and deals to then go and disperse that money to add to that, shareholder share price moving forward.
Yeah.
And so that is big news that has come out today for Firefly. Now I want to go to the chart for you and have a look because there are a few things lining up. Now I'll just get rid of these little markers through here. But let's start off on the monthly chart. Now you'll see that Firefly, obviously if I go back throughout history, it's had a long history and it's come off some really huge highs now, giving that huge basing out pattern, but not without significant buying coming through. And when I say significant, January 2020 was where things really got interesting of recent history. Since then, we've had this pullback, but we've managed to find support, not taking out the previous all-time low, broken through a momentum line. Now we're showing higher highs and higher lows. And we're respecting this long-term uptrend line on the monthly chart. that's quite important, even though the volatility has spiked a little. So I would say purely from price action, I guess support and resistance, there is the very real possibility if we start trending higher now, we could reach that $1.41 level. But to me, what adds layers to that, we are now in this nice uptrend, it's the way price is unfolding in terms of the buyer and seller interaction. And what I mean by that is, obviously, you've got these two rectangle boxes that I've got in orange. When you measure this trend and you see what's been happening, these two orange boxes show you very significant buyer activity, like 7, 8, 9 weeks of just buying, not met with any selling. You roll your eye over through this period here, you're hard pressed to find that.
Yeah, you are.
Right? And so now that we've turned the corner, we're making higher highs, we've just come into a second bout of this really strong buying with no seller activity. And if I zoom the chart out a lot, look how much volume's picked up since 2024.
Wow. Yep.
It's like chalk and cheese. So good news, in an uptrend, showing strong buying from the buyer perspective, still a lot of opportunity given where it is. This could be one of those cheap stocks we could have added in. So one to watch.
Like it.
Yeah.
I like it. I know Janine doesn't like it because it's under $1, but I do like it.
Oh, hang on, it's $1.03.
Just
be
fits.
okay.
Oh, we're just sneaked into what Janine likes. Would you like to add a comment on it, Janine?
Yeah, I think it looks pretty awesome actually at the moment, given that way it's unfolded. Just needs to jump and cut another couple of hurdles, and then I reckon it will be exactly like you say.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just ticking all the boxes at the moment, isn't it? It's just it's beautiful looking stock for the moment. But if you want more from us, check out our video, Top Banking Stocks to Buy Under $20.